Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
I am DK Will. This is DK Will Talk About It. We're going to do our third series in our series of XRP videos. Behind the curtain in this land of Oz. This will be the third one. I hope you are following along. If not, please go start at number 1 and come on back. Make your way back to here so you can follow along and get the point, because as I'm doing this, I'm seeing the point come together even more so than what I remembered when I did these videos. But like I said, it's kind of like the Bible. The Bible was finished over 2,000 years ago, but it's still timely today. I try to make my material timely. And so far it's proving that way. So for the sake of time, let's get her going. And let's follow this course behind the curtain in this land of Oz involving Ripple and XRP. I hope the mic does sound right. Hi, I'm DK Will, and this is DK Will Talk About It. And I'm going to talk about the Iraqi dinar, gold-backed money, and primarily India. And as I've said many a time, you can't trade gold leaves for maple leaves. And this is all narrative, folks, in turning towards the tenets of Nasara and Gassara. The war is over who controls it. And so now what is really going on is a move towards a gold standard and a threat to the U.S. dollar as a part of the narrative to get the U.S. off its boat, and actually get moving because all the other countries are ready. Next, I think you're going to see China. And let's look at it for what it is. Russia's a part of the BRICS, and they're not going to trade their maple leaves and gold leaves either. So if Russia's going to go to the gold standard, Brazil's going to go to the gold standard. India's going to go to the gold standard. China's going to go to the gold standard. And South Africa is going to go to the gold standard. The globe is going to go to the gold standard. Russia and China have declared they are gold-backed, asset-backed with solid verifiable assets as required by the International Monetary Fund. All countries would follow, beginning with the U.S. From the very beginning, we were told this was moved from east to west. There's no country further east than Russia. And Russia declared that they were gold-backed before China declared they were gold-backed. But guess who comes after Russia when you keep heading east? Then there's China. So as you're heading from east to west, you headed from Russia to China. Guess who's coming up next? India, if they haven't already. Because that's still east to west. And then you're going to have South Africa, and then you're going to have Brazil. Because, see, those are the BRICS nations I talked about in a prior video. And here she is, India. Russia, India, to discuss swift alternative for ruble payments when Lavrov visits New Delhi. Goes on to say that Russia needs new cross-border payment plan after its banks were barred from using international SWIFT payment system following invasion of Ukraine. That's narrative, folks. It goes on to say that the ruble payment plan will allow India to buy Russian oil and weapons, claiming its arms purchases are needed to counter China's military assertiveness. You know when they start getting sloppy at their narratives, that hopefully it wakes people up and they raise eyebrows and they say, what? And begin to look behind the curtain. Because what does this talk about China's military assertiveness? Because when I see photographs like this, it just doesn't communicate to me military assertiveness. I see China on the far left, and then I see India second from the right, and I see them all linked together, all happy campers smiling with the big cheeks puffing out. They all seem pretty happy to me for having suffered military assertiveness against one another. So they're giving you a bunch of narratives about the Ukraine and Russia and all this stuff as reasons for this, but one thing is certain. What you look at is the facts, and the facts are countries are going gold back. The facts are blockchain technology is taking over SWIFT. They're telling you that Russia's coming off the SWIFT because of this war and sanctions and all that other narrative BS. What matters is, if you get your head out of the narrative, is yeah, they are coming off of SWIFT, no matter what the narrative says. And so, as I've said many times, before you bring in the new, you got to get rid of the old. Guess what the old is? SWIFT. Guess what the new is? On-demand liquidity. On-demand liquidity. Releasing all that nostro vostro accounts through blockchain technology. We can see that India's government is considering a proposal from Russia to use a system, folks, a system, developed by the Russian Central Bank for bilateral payments, according to people with knowledge of the matter, as the Asian nation seeks to buy oil and weapons from the sanctions-hit country. Has Russia's central bank been working with Ripple? Yes. Has India been working with Ripple? Yes, for years. Has Russia been preparing so that they could get off the SWIFT? Yes. Before this ever happened? Yes. It's all in prior videos, folks. Okay, so that doesn't sound fair for Russia to me, because Russian rubles are backed by gold. Is there any evidence out there that the Indian money is backed by gold? Well, when you think about the digital direction of money, the answer is yes. The world's first gold-backed digital gold currency was launched in India, as this article shows, from June 24th, 2020. And so my hope for goal is to pull everyone's heads out of the narrative to see that this is bigger than Iraq. And things are happening that are converting a monetary system. And I will finish this out by letting prior videos get the point across, because the point has already been made. I'm just trying hard to get people to accept it. When the money started talking, the BIS started walking. And that BIS, of course, is the Bank of International Settlements. We're going to talk about how what we're witnessing here is really a war. It's really a battle for control. And it's really a battle to stop losing control. Well, the question is, control of whom? There was a time when regular folks controlled their system of exchange, their money, and it was called the barter system. And because it was strictly between the individuals making the exchanges, the governmental powers and the banks really had no say in it. If I grew corn and you raised livestock and you needed my corn and I needed your livestock, we met, we made a deal, we made a trade, and we both got what we needed. Keep it in mind that money, per se, can be whatever we choose it to be. In that illustration I just gave you, my corn was money, your livestock was money. We could collectively decide that Tootsie Rolls out of a cat litter box are money. Of course, cat ownership will go up, but as long as everybody agrees that that's money, well then, that's money. And that's kind of what's been happening with the cryptocurrency industry, but we'll talk about that going forward. The difference then comes into currency, cryptocurrency. Currency is not necessarily identical to what money is. And to call it decentralized currency just means it's not in the hands of the government. But is it? There's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes and moving and shaking to get control of our money. And the way to get control of our money was to design currencies. And we're not guessing that this is the goal, because when you start looking deeper, you find out this quote you see here was attributed to
the Rothschilds, the House of the Rothschilds. There's a little debate as to its origin because it came out years after the one they attributed to died. But without getting into that, we've heard it before. It does exist. And what it says is, let us control the money of a nation, and we care not who makes its laws. Said to be a maxim of the House of the Rothschilds, and even more vaguely, of the money lenders of the world. Why is that important? Why am I talking about the Rothschilds? Well, here's a complete list of the Rothschild owned and controlled banks. And just to give you a clue, you can see those flags around that man's head. But as you look at this page, and I'll put the link down in the description, you can see that an increasing number of people are waking up to the fact that 99% of the Earth's population is controlled by an elite 1%. Here is a complete list of those banks. It boggles the mind. Here is a complete list of those banks owned by the Rothschild family. And it's hard to find a country missing, folks. Keep in mind, these are privately owned banks. And these privately owned banks include the Fed, which is generally unknown to the public, sitting on its very own patch of land, immune to U.S. laws just like the District of Columbia. The IRS is a foreign private corporation. Of course, you have the link in the bottom. You'll be able to read this more thoroughly.
If you go watch
So
the
when we
video.
listen to this interview with Mr. Karstens from the Bank of International Settlements, let's not forget who's really behind the scenes and what are they really concerned about and what are they really after. It's an ecological disaster. The man just picked up Bitcoin and threw it down, body slammed it, picked it up and body slammed it again. Clearly, Bitcoin does not fit into the BIS agenda. I'm sorry for all the Bitcoin maximalists out there, but that's just the facts. Those who are in control of the banks currently are not for Bitcoin. And you saw that there. You notice too that he didn't even address the fact that people don't trust the governments. And remember our quote in the beginning, they don't care as long as they control the money. But I'm not making up this idea that they want to control the money. Who has control of the information of people? The commercial banks, all of which we own because we own, being the Rothschilds, the central banks that are in all of these countries that produce and loan the money to those countries, we don't have any control of this cryptocurrency thing because it's kind of like the barter system. It's decentralized. Well, I think it's actually a Trojan horse, but nonetheless, it is decentralized from the central banks. And so they're worried and they don't want to lose control. So what are they going to do? They're going to create their own digital form of money. Those are called central bank digital currencies. And I want to stress here, folks, that there's a difference between central bank digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. There's a difference between digital money and cryptocurrency. And as you saw the way Mr. Carson's picked up and body slammed Bitcoin, they're not happy with these cryptocurrencies. They told us a long time ago what their plans were. And I don't know about you folks, but I noticed something very interesting about this. Those of us who really have our ear to the ground look for it to start in London. Can Britain keep booming? Satoshi Nakamoto. What's that? What's that mean? investment banks pull back, maybe push back, because now the institutions, investment banks, are running after crypto. This symbol here, does that look familiar, folks? That looks very much like the stellar lumens to me. And I couldn't help but see that X on this phoenix. So money's going through some changes, folks. And that interview shows that the war continues, and many are not aware of this war. And I've said in other videos, which I'll put the cards on this video, that we are at war. And it's a war for everything. It's a war for control of everything, including the money. So when the money started talking, the BIS started walking. The video we're doing today, though, is about XRP business, BIS business, for Bank for International Settlements. And the Bank for International Settlements released information on the 28th of July regarding the Innovation Hub launching Project Nexus. And that project was done in collaboration with the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And they also have a proposed blueprint, and that blueprint is available online. And on that page, you can see they also released a 3-minute video. We're going to take a look at that 3-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we'll watch some of it. And Nexus is a model for connecting multiple national payment systems into a cross-border platform that can enable international payments to happen as quickly as sending a text message. And as you saw, there are more than 60 nations involved. And so what we're going to do, we're going to look at the video here briefly. We're not going to look at all of it, like I mentioned. And what I'd like you to do while you're watching this video is notice how the language used sounds so very much like Brad Garlinghouse. And so, along with that blueprint of the joint report for the Bank for International Settlements and the Monetary Authority of Singapore, they also released a PDF full text. It's only 20 pages long. I actually did go to that PDF full text because in looking behind the curtain, I'm looking to see XRP's role. And when I looked at that PDF full text document, the links will be in the description of this video if you want to read it. I took it
Links
to
will be in the
page
description of that video if you
where
go
I
find it.
saw the ISO 20022 standard. This is the BIS Innovation Hub. You can see the players involved, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, along with the National Payment Corporation of India. We'll talk about that too. But the information that really mattered here was the use of the standard ISO 2002 standard for payment messages. And if you recall in another video, the video that I put out, Give an IOTA, I think is the one that has talks on the ISO 20022 standard. I'll put the cards in the video. And Brad gave us a hint with that their word board behind him over his shoulder. But Nexus will use the ISO 2002 standard for data messages in this release for sending cross-border payments. And so it's basically a message to all the financial institutions to get on board or get left behind. That's really what's going on here. For those of us that are really paying attention to what's going on, and I'm one of those people that are paying attention, I've never been too poor to do that. We notice that the primary players were the two that I've already mentioned, the Monetary Authority of Singapore and the National Payments Corporation of India. And they did not hesitate to give credit to those two entities, keeping in mind that the Bank for International Settlements is the central bank of central banks. And so, of course, they're not going to hesitate to give credit to central banks. But what I did was I looked a little bit deeper behind that, and I actually took a trip. And that trip I took was a virtual trip. I took a virtual trip to the website for the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And my goal, since of course the Bank of International Settlements is highlighting the SWIFT program for being involved in this process. Of course, here at the, I'm going to say MAS for short, they're also, speaking on the release of the 28th, enhancing global real-time retail payments network connectivity. We know at the BIS they were talking about cross-border payments, and nowadays in a global economy, of course, retail and cross-border can be synonymous. But my goal in going to the Monetary Authority for Singapore, the MAS's website, was to find evidence of the fact that the real mechanisms and the gears behind this move were Ripple and XRP. And we see here they collaborated with the Loop Foundation to advance financial inclusion. And the way they described it was to provide the undeserved access to affordable financial services through digital currency-based settlement systems and a foundational digital infrastructure. And that's good news for us because it's making it, mainstream. It's adoption in the, at least in the ASEAN markets, and of course the U.S. will catch up. I'll talk about that. But they want to increase financial inclusion by empowering organizations creating that capability. And of course, there you see it, Ripple. They are most certainly involved in this process with the Loop Foundation. And so going forward, we can see that the adoption and the real-time payments reference model being used is the reference model, is the interledger protocol that Ripple is pushing for and actually pioneering the on-demand liquidity to remove the need for Nostro Vosto accounts, distributed ledger technology, that the true rails, the true pipeline is Ripple and XRP.
Well, this progression continues. I can't give it all up in one, but it's coming together nicely. I'm learning as I go myself, at least being reminded of some of the things that came out. I hope they're beneficial. May end up in a place that we don't want to be, but it's going where it's going, and it's full of evidence. So I hope you come back for the next one. This is number 3 in a series. I have no idea how many the series will include. It will include as many as it takes to get done. But for now, I am done. I'm DK Will, and this is DK Will Talk About It. And I've talked about it. Have a wonderful day.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right.